After the return of the real rich young lady, Eric took back my villa key and made an official announcement of his engagement with her. I missed the wedding, and he was indifferent, saying, "It's better to avoid crying, making a scene, or even doing something drastic." But my sister insisted on making sure of my safety. As soon as she called, my crying voice echoed through the room. Eric's eyes turned red instantly, and he spent the whole night searching all the hotels in the city. Four Seasons Hotel, Presidential Suite. When Eric's name appeared on the screen of the phone, Billy's lips curled even deeper. His rough fingertips held my waist tightly, pulling me closer with a slight force. A warm breath brushed against my ear. The man teasingly nibbled on my earlobe, saying, "Trying to make me jealous, but your tactics are too shallow." I didn't respond, nor did I dare to speak. If I spoke up, he might become even more unbearable. "I still want to see the sun rise tomorrow." The air around us grew hotter. Eric's call hadn't ended yet. "Today is his wedding with my sister, Rose. One is the real rich young lady who returned to the white, and the other is a Wall Street noble." The Century wedding brought together many distinguished guests, and was live-streamed online. So, what's the point of him calling his former fiancée, who's now a fake rich young lady, at this moment? Suddenly, there was a tightness in my ear. I winced in pain, and looked straight into Billy's displeased and deep eyes. "Having your cake and eating it too." He picked up the remote control at the head of the bed and pressed a button. The screen flashed, revealing the live broadcast of the Century wedding. On the stage, Rose held Eric's phone, looking worried. Why didn't my sister answer the phone? She had run away from home a week ago. Could something have happened to her? "What do you mean I ran away from home?" It was me who repeatedly set up my sister, causing my parents to painfully cut ties with me. The night before being returned by the white, Eric also took back all the keys to his villas. My proposed marriage partner is the true heir of the white. So, our relationship ends here. Don't let Rose misunderstand. So the feelings I've poured out for 7 years are ultimately just 4 words. A proposed marriage partner. Something that can be easily replaced. And the instigator was now holding a champagne glass, his handsome face looking carefree and indifferent. "If she's not here, she's not here," Eric said, taking Rose's waist in a loving and indulgent manner. "It's better this way, so she won't cause a scene at our wedding." Suddenly, Billy whispered in my ear, "Come on, give me a show of tears and tantrums." I rolled my eyes at him. "With you?" But what I got in return was an even more ruthless response from the man. "Emily, you brought this upon yourself," he said casually. "Don't you obey at all?" For the sake of my safety, I quickly grabbed his strong back muscles and knelt down on the bed. "Please, brother, spare me." Billy chuckled slightly and relented, but the next moment, my voice seemed inexplicably played back, followed by a clamor of shouts. "What's going on? Why is Emily shouting? It sounds a bit suggestive. And there's a man's laughter. Is it possible? Did you hear that? It sounded like the wedding march in the background. It seems like our conversation is being heard." Wow, so we are all part of their little play while watching the wedding live. Billy laughed again, disconnected the call. In the live broadcast, Rose stood still, holding the phone. Eric's face suddenly darkened like the bottom of a pot. Billy, his lifelong rival, a powerful figure from Wall Street who always seemed to overshadow him. Before becoming a fake rich young lady, I had also been a beloved daughter of Wall Street for over 20 years. I couldn't afford to lose face. So, right after dragging my suitcase out of the white, I headed straight to the manor of my childhood friend, taking away Vivian, the Maine Coon cat, from his arms. "All right, I'll accept your confession. From now on, I'll be your darling wife," I said to Billy. After saying that, Billy turned to call his medical team. "Give her some fever medicine." He reached out for the cat. I hugged Vivian tightly. "My temperature is 36.5 degrees, and I'm perfectly normal." "Are you sure you're normal?" He stared at me, frowning slightly. "You're only responding to the confession from 7 years ago today. You must be very clear-headed now." "Yeah, I wasn't thinking clearly 7 years ago. My mind was filled with nothing but studies and Eric," I said seriously. "Besides, these things require careful consideration." Billy chuckled lightly. "Is it careful consideration, or being dumped and coming to me, a childhood friend, as a backup plan to save face?" "Both," I admitted openly. Then, I picked up a document from his vintage European table and shook it lightly. "I bet you won't refuse me now," I said with a smile. Billy didn't say anything, his gaze deep and intense. Finally, with a slight smirk, he stood up. He still had the upper hand, showing that he wasn't deeply hurt. Taking the folder, he calmly set Vivian back on the couch. The next moment, his long arms encircled my waist tightly. "If we're going to do this, Don't regret it, he warned. You get lost in thought too often. He pinched my nose, making me snap out of my daze quickly. I grabbed a pillow and smacked his face, exclaiming, "You're ridiculous. Who answers the phone at a time like this? It's being live-streamed online." He chuckled, "It's more exciting that way." He lifted me onto his lap, gazing at the projection screen where Eric's eyes were turning even redder. Billy snorted. "Looks like that guy is mad. Do you feel happy that he's getting angry for you?" As soon as he finished, Eric let go of Rose's hand. He hurriedly left the wedding stage. Startled, Rose paled, asking, "Eric, where are you going?" Eric paused, then pushed her hand away again. "I have something to take care of. Let's pause the wedding for now." Watching this bizarre scene, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Wow. Can a wedding be paused like this? Seeming dissatisfied with my distraction once again, a low sigh sounded by my ear, continuing spitefully. I couldn't bring myself to look at the chaotic live broadcast anymore, until a soft knock suddenly came from outside the bedroom, accompanied by Billy's assistant's somewhat embarrassed voice. "Boss, sorry to disturb. Just got word that Eric is suddenly checking all the hotel suites in New York City. Eric is on his way over here." Billy let out a low chuckle, wrapping his arms around my waist tightly. "Let him through to the suite door." "All right." I clung to the man's sturdy shoulders, squinting at him. "So, you predicted he would come over. I was wondering why you weren't at the manor today, but decided to come specifically to open the presidential suite." Billy raised an eyebrow. "Predicting the opponent's prediction is my way of doing things." All right. Did you not predict that I'm nearly paralyzed with exhaustion now?" I couldn't help but roll my eyes again, and grabbed his abs hard. "Are you feeling better now?" "I'm exhausted. Don't rush me." Veins popped slightly on the man's forehead, his words tinged with a hint of gritting teeth. "Don't we need to wait for our distinguished guest to arrive?" He pondered for a moment, then his eyes lit up. "I changed my mind. I want to let the guest through to the bedroom door." I was taken aback, and suddenly remembered what was still scattered on the sofa outside the bedroom. "You jerk, you." Billy smirked, tilting his head down and silencing the rest of my words, until a commotion came from outside the bedroom. "Mr. Eric, sorry, this is a private suite. Stand aside." After Eric's reprimand, Billy picked up the remote control again, switching the screen to the surveillance feed outside the bedroom suite. In the footage, Eric pushed aside our seemingly helpless assistant and stormed into the living room. The next moment, he was stunned by the scene before his eyes. On the large leather sofa, scattered the remnants of what I and Billy had just played with, our uniforms from 7 years ago. Eric walked over in a daze, trembling fingers picking up my uniform shirt, staring blankly at the light brown stain on it. On that day 7 years ago, I gathered the courage to confess my feelings to Eric. Ripe rambutan fruits fell on my shoulder, interrupting my awkward confession. The young man leaned against the trunk of the rambutan tree, his gaze finally moving away from the book and landing on me. And that was the first time I saw a smile appear on that forbidding face. I thought I had finally reached for that bright moon. Suddenly, I felt myself lifted by Billy. From the mattress, I was moved to the bedroom door. Billy's gaze turned cold for a moment. Then he grabbed my hand and placed it on the door handle. Missed him, then open the door and go out. He pressed down on the door handle with malice. My heart tightened, so I quickly hooked his neck and planted a light kiss on his sexy earlobe. Another shout from Eric came from outside. "Emily, come out." He started running towards the door, making my already exhausted body and head ache even more. The pleading voice outside the door gradually trembled. "Emily, please. Why do you have to be with someone else? Why? Why does it have to be Billy?" Billy seemed to chuckle in frustration. The next moment, the door was pulled slightly ajar. I shuddered, but was quickly moved to the side by the man, watching him squint at the door crack, teasingly smirking outside. "You seem to have a bias against me, but whoever she chooses seems to have nothing to do with you, her brother-in-law, right?" The ambiguous tone floated out with his light taunting words. Eric pushed the door hard as if breaking a major defense line. "Billy, let Emily go. You just wait. I won't let you off the hook." As the door was easily closed by the man, he was pulled away by the assistant and others outside. With the surroundings finally returning to silence, the farce finally came to an end, and I couldn't resist it anymore. I passed out. When I woke up hungry, it was early the next morning. I didn't even know when I had returned to the opulent bed at Billy's estate. My phone was vibrating loudly on the bedside table. The comment section exploded. "I heard that Eric searched through all the hotel suites in New York City last night. Don't know if he found anyone, but he did contribute a lot to the police. Rose had a tough time, heard she fainted at the wedding, but Emily is amazing. Emily, a rejected fake heiress, Why did Billy notice her? Guaguan, discussing, one after another, came to beg for responses under my post. After a moment of thought, I rolled out of bed. Good morning, Miss Rose. Just as I opened the door, I bumped into the assistant, who was going upstairs. Boss is almost done preparing breakfast. He asked me to call you down. Is he cooking again? I peeked into the kitchen, catching a whiff of the fragrance lingering in the air. Sure enough, a broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted figure was busy at the stove in an apron. I rubbed my grumbling stomach and hurried over, picked up a sausage and brought it to my mouth. The next moment, I was gently tapped on the hand. That's not a ladylike way to eat. I don't care. I picked up another sausage. Then I turned and leaned against Billy's arm. I raised my phone and took a cute selfie. Posted it directly on social media. The comment section instantly exploded. Emily has responded. It really is Billy. Wait, what is Billy doing? Making soup by himself. This girl has such a good breakfast early in the morning. All aspects are covered. She seems quite self-aware, knowing she's just a pampered wife. Ruining someone's wedding and showing off here. You're invincible. I shrugged and put down my phone to continue eating sausages. The arm behind me suddenly paused. You really have no shame. They're not wrong. Am I not like a pampered wife? I chuckled, pointing at myself. Silk camisole nightgown, suggestive red marks everywhere, eating what a big shot eats. Still a big shot's woman. Billy glanced at me, shaking his head slightly. Any plans for the day? I'm going back to the White family today. I picked up a freshly steamed shrimp dumpling. I rushed out too quickly after the rejection, forgot to take some things. The man's gaze turned back to me, chuckling twice. You sure know how to pick the timing to come back. Need me, this big shot, to help you out? I waved my hand. No need for that. Just need to borrow a couple of bodyguards from you. Got a lot of stuff to move. Billy nodded. Come back early. Don't forget about tonight's auction. He calmly sliced the omelette, the morning sunlight highlighting his meticulously sculpted face, elegant and refined. During the daytime, he was nothing like a dog. Thinking of some interesting plot points from a book, I couldn't help but drag a chair next to him. I joked, hey dog stuff, are you going through a rough patch? Billy paused with the knife in hand. His gaze finally deepened as he asked, do you still want to go out? Ignoring that, I went back to White family, which was as lively as I expected. The runaway bride from yesterday stood forlornly at the entrance of White family. Faint sobbing and comforting sounds could be heard from inside. Hearing the commotion, Eric turned around. Spotting me, his eyes lit up. Emily. As his eyes swept a few times down my neckline, he abruptly stopped, his eyes turning cold. Aren't you going to cover up a bit? Forget that. It's 95 degrees Fahrenheit out here. Trying to roast me. Ignoring his comment, I went straight to open the door. It happened to be wide open. My brother Charles saw me and the affection on his face vanished instantly. What are you doing here? Ruin Rose's wedding and still have the face to come back. I frowned, crossing my arms. Rose herself called me. I didn't go to the wedding as you all wished, right? But you had to come and provoke me. I haven't said you're forcing things, have I? You? Charles turned red with anger, raising his hand to slap me across the face. Before the bodyguards behind me could step in, another hand swiftly caught Charles's wrist. Charles, she's still your sister. In a soft voice, Eric looked at me with pity. Seeing this, Charles sneered, Eric, are you not satisfied with hurting Rose enough? Don't forget, you're here to ask for her forgiveness. I'm not asking you to kneel at the door. That's already giving you face. Eric opened his mouth, but eventually, just let go of Charles's hand in silence. His gaze returned to Charles's hand. Then suddenly he seemed to have discovered something, his pupils contracting. Charles, have you been wearing these 2 rings on your right ring finger all along? What? Charles subconsciously fiddled with the rings, looking at him strangely. Are you getting involved in the couple rings with my wife now? As soon as Charles finished speaking, Eric was struck as if by lightning, rooted to the spot. I knew what he was thinking. That night, my face was scratched by Charles's slap and the ring, leaving blood marks. But when I returned to Eric's mansion in a daze, he just sneered without emotion. Putting on makeup for yourself. Couldn't get any pity from Charles's family. So you came to find me. Have you ever thought about whose fault it is? Ignoring the intense gaze he cast on me, I pushed Charles into the house. On the couch, Rose was crying pitifully, comforted by my former foster parents with kind words. The 3 of them were stunned when they saw me. Do you need anything? William stared at me coldly, never expecting that half a year ago, he would reach for the stars for me. I'm here to take the things I didn't have time to bring with me last time. I gestured for the bodyguards outside to come in. I'm just taking my own things. Your feelings or whatever, I don't care. Upon hearing this, William's face darkened even more. Emily White, there's nothing of yours left in this house. Keeping your last name is the last bit of face we're giving you. Oh, I stopped looking at him, immediately pointing to the exquisitely framed oil paintings in the living room. Pack up this one, and that one too. They're all leaving. Seeing the bodyguards filing in, William jumped up in shock. What are you doing? These paintings belong to our family. You can't touch them. These paintings are all mine. How come they're suddenly yours? My rights to my own creations legally and emotionally belong to me, right? I took the packaging materials from the guards and carefully wrapped the paintings. Rose, who had been crying continuously, suddenly stopped her tears. Shakily, she ran towards me and grabbed my wrist. A flash of disgust crossed her eyes briefly, then quickly turned into a pitiable pose. Sister, can you leave these paintings here for one more night? Just one night. Tomorrow I'll personally pack them and send them to Mr. Billy's estate. I looked at her, then at the panicked white family members behind her. I couldn't help but laugh. What trick are you guys trying to pull with my paintings? As soon as I spoke, a burst of lively chatting and laughter could be heard from outside. Charles brought in a sophisticated Western man with a familiar face, enthusiastically introducing him in fluent English. This is our white family. This is my father, Mr. William, and my mother, Mrs. Joy. Dad, Mom, this is the famous collector, Mr. Hills. He then pointed to the pale-faced Rose. This is mine, Miss Emily. I never expected to meet you here. While Charles was still speaking, the old man approached me excitedly. The rumors of the Wall Street white family's daughter are indeed true. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. This left William and his son dumbfounded. You two know each other. Mr. Hills smiled and nodded. We've met before. His gaze then fell on Rose, his expression turning puzzled. Oh, Mr. William, you said who is this again? The white family avoided eye contact, unable to say a word. So, it was left to me to break the increasingly awkward atmosphere. Mr. Hills, are you buying my paintings again? I shook hands with him cheerfully. I'm sorry, I've been moving recently. So many paintings need sorting before they can be put up for sale again. However, I will be participating in tonight's Drunken Night auction, and will showcase the most anticipated piece. Is that so? Mr. Hills's eyes shone brightly, as he nodded repeatedly. I will definitely go. Then I'll go back to prepare for the auction first. Without even saying goodbye to Emily's family, he hurriedly left. I glanced at Emily's family, whose faces had turned into a color palette, shrugged and smiled lightly. May I still need to use my paintings? No one answered. Well, then I'll continue. When I got to the last painting, which was also the most important one, Eric suddenly walked in. Upon seeing this painting, his eyes lit up instantly. Rose, do you also want to take this painting with you? I glanced at him and then looked back at my painting. The young man in the painting was dressed in white school uniform, handsome and noble, like an untouchable flower on a high peak. Such a young man had once occupied a special place in my heart, but now, things had changed, and that place seemed to have faded into obscurity. I smirked lightly. Yes, this is an important painting to me. I'll take it to the auction. Eric's eyes suddenly filled with hope. Seeing this, Emily seemed to be irritated and rushed towards me, raising her hand to slap me. Emily, are you out of your mind? Eric is my husband. Although our wedding was ruined, we have already gotten married. Truly siblings. Even the curve of their slapping hands was exactly the same. I didn't dodge, just waited for the bodyguards to protect me and the painting. Don't worry, little sister. I just want to be the top boss's pampered wife now. I don't have time for dirty tricks, like stealing someone else's man. Oh, by the way, my husband and I just got our marriage certificate. We'll have the wedding ceremony soon. If you want to come, I'll have my assistant send you an invitation. With that, I left with a room full of paintings and heard Emily screaming behind me. What dirty tricks? Rose, you're the one who's trying to steal someone else's man. Eric fell in love with me first. Before she could finish, Charles covered her mouth in the reflection of the glass door. Eric's face changed drastically, and he tried to follow in a panic. But before the bodyguards could step in, Charles quickly came and closed the door the moment I left. After leaving Emily's house, I had the bodyguards escort the paintings back first and then went to enjoy a Michelin 3-star meal, feeling quite good. I also pondered the meaning behind Emily's words. It seemed like they didn't meet after Emily reconnected with her family. Charles's reaction was also quite strange. Casually strolling back to the mansion, I found that Billy had also left work early. He was sitting in the living room, examining each of my paintings with a critical eye. Eric's painting was even placed in a prominent position. Seeing his obviously displeased expression, I chuckled and walked over to the painting. I looked at the antique cutting knife he was tightly holding in his hand and then stood in front of the painting. Be careful with that. It's the highlight of my collection tonight. Billy raised an eyebrow slightly, and put the cutting knife back on the table. He picked up Vivian and chuckled softly. "Aren't you afraid of being embarrassed by getting a low price tonight?" I shrugged. "It doesn't matter. Our ultimate goal is not that." Billy remained silent. With the cat uncomfortably wriggling in his arms, he finally struggled and jumped down. I chuckled at the sight and went over to him. "Don't be jealous. How about I paint one for you? Not for sale. Just frame it and hang it in your study to admire my amazing painting skills every day." Billy glanced at me. He turned his face away and snorted lightly. "I don't want the tactics you used on other men. I'm not interested. Seems like I'm dealing with a tough one, like a stand-in. Difficult to please." I rolled my eyes at him. "Fine, let's not waste time. We need to get ready for the auction. What should I wear?" "Never mind." Billy smirked and snapped his fingers confidently. An assistant brought a set of custom-made evening gowns slowly from the other building. It was a dark high-end trailing evening gown, adorned with diamonds, like the night sky. It was also paired with a set of amethyst high-end jewelry. "Emily, this was ordered by Billy a long time ago." The assistant couldn't help but come over and gossip in my ear. An uncomfortable light cough interrupted him. "Go call the maid and help her change into the dress." Okay. The assistant ran off with a smile. I thought for a moment and called the assistant back. "No need to bother the maid. Bring me the dress." I dragged the dress rack over and followed Billy. "Help me change." Billy hesitated for a moment. He stood up and gave me a nod. I took the opportunity to stand in front of him and raised an eyebrow. "We've been married for a week. Are you not willing to help me change into a dress?" Billy squinted at me for a long time. Finally, he nodded and chuckled lightly. "All right. Then you have to help me change into a suit." "Deal." 15 minutes later, in an elegant dress, I was pressed against the wardrobe by Billy, showered with a storm of kisses. I pushed away his hand, which was wandering dangerously close to my waist. "It'll wrinkle. If it wrinkles, I'll change it. Have it ironed, and put it back on." The man lowered his hoarse voice and chuckled softly in my ear. "Since there are still 4 hours before the auction starts, I don't mind changing it for you a few more times. I'm afraid you'll squeeze out every minute of these 4 hours. Let's think about our plan for tonight." I quickly changed the subject. "How are you going to act tonight?" Billy raised his eyebrows and stood up straight. "Following your lead. This was your idea." I gently touched the amethyst necklace on my chest and smiled inwardly. Suddenly, an idea came to my mind. What about collaborating from the inside and outside? After exchanging a few pleasantries, we continued walking towards the designated location. Along the way, Billy chuckled slightly and said, "That gentleman is one of the top collectors in Europe." I remembered that his name was not on tonight's guest list. The man seemed to realize something and his smile deepened. I commented on how busy the waiters and security were outside, not typical of Lee's usual preparations. Lee, the host of the auction, sat on the high seat on the second floor, surveying the venue with a cold expression, focusing mostly on Billy and me. I mentioned how Mr. Hills seemed to have him keep a closer eye on us lately. Just then, a slender arm gently wrapped around my waist. "Don't worry," a warm breath whispered in my ear as we stood there, intimate like a couple. This public display of affection attracted even more attention and nearly breached a certain defense. I couldn't believe that someone's house was in chaos, but still managed to attend the auction tonight, even sitting next to my VIP seat. As I sat down, Eric instantly regained his composure, sitting elegantly in a well-tailored white suit, with a cool and distant look, like a pristine mountain flower. It was all so staged. I glanced at Billy, who seemed unfazed, his disheveled hair concealing a faint light emanating from an in-ear transmitter. Tonight was going to be a busy night. As time passed, items were either sold or remained unsold until the staff brought my painting to the auction table. When the curtain unveiled, a handsome young man basked in the sunlight, exuding an air of purity that demanded respect and admiration, sparking murmurs throughout the venue. The figure in the painting looked so familiar. "Isn't that Eric?" I felt like I had seen this painting at Billy's house before. The next item, provided by Emily, was presented as Hope. Despite Emily's recent controversies, her exceptional painting skills, loaned from European masters, were highly respected in the global art circle. This painting was for charity, and all proceeds would be donated to the girls' education fund. The auctioneer's introduction sparked even more discussions among the attendees. Many had noticed Eric and me sitting next to each other. Did Eric really win Emily back after the runaway wedding? Otherwise, why were they sitting together, showcasing their affection with the painting? But wasn't Emily supposed to come with Billy? It's so complicated. As bidding began, Eric unexpectedly raised the stakes. 1 million. On the other end, Mr. Hills countered confidently with 2 million. However, at that moment, The elderly man furrowed his brows slightly, his gaze constantly shifting between me and the painting. Without hesitation, Eric raised the bid to 5 million. Mr. Hills frowned even more. He liked my painting, but clearly didn't like the figure in it. He must have heard something. Alright, 5 million once, 5 million twice. No one else bid, and Eric's pristine facade was starting to crack, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. Just as the auctioneer was about to close the deal, I gracefully stood up. Sorry, everyone, this painting is not my item for tonight. The room fell silent. Many complex looks were directed at Eric, who had turned pale. Nonetheless, Mr. Hill stood up excitedly, raising his bid. Yes, this is the hope I've been looking for. 10 million. The atmosphere was stirred up, and a well-known female philanthropist started bidding. 11 million. 12 million. As I returned to my seat, Billy finally gestured and discreetly touched his ear. He needed to be careful with the earpiece. Billy looked at me helplessly, then took my finger, which was cut by the pen and paper, and gently sucked on it. I shrugged, saying, I only care if my painting fetches a high price. Finally, the gavel signaled the end. Hope was sold for 35 million to Mr. Hills, who beamed like a child with a shiny toy, while a disheveled Eric left the venue in embarrassment. The auction continued. Shortly after, a black-clad waiter handed me a card. Congratulations to Miss Emily for the high bid on your item. This is your entry pass. Please contact the guide at gate 8 if necessary. I clenched the card in my hand, feeling a sense of relief. Next moment, a large hand gently enveloped mine, and Billy leaned in, tilting his head. My mind instantly relaxed a bit. I rose to head towards gate 8. Hello, Miss Emily, greeted the guide respectfully. He then bound my hands with restraint straps, blindfolded me, and put earplugs in my ears. After winding through numerous corridors, I finally arrived at a completely black venue. This place was different from the usual public auctions. Each guest had their own private lounge to protect their identity. This was the true face of midnight. While the outside world seemed bright and clean, this underground nest was dirty and grimy. Here, the items up for auction were no longer limited to legal goods. They even extended beyond physical items. For instance, on the auction stage at that moment, there was a young man locked in a cage. A mechanical voice echoed through the speakers in the lounges. This is a rare blood-type donor with undeniable value. Please place your bids, esteemed guests. Thank you for your participation, and welcome back anytime. Please be patient as the security check concludes, and the guides will escort you back to your seats. Suddenly, I found myself back in that endless twisting corridor, blindfolded and deafened. As I walked, a faint, blood-tinged breeze gently brushed my hair, coming from a passageway I hadn't taken before. I quickly touched the amethyst necklace hanging around my neck. Next moment, a loud noise pierced through the earplugs, shaking everything around me. Panicking, I screamed and ran back, causing chaos among the guests behind me in the narrow corridor, and took the opportunity to slip into the unfamiliar passage. After a while, the guide finally found me cowering in a corner, shaking with fear, and quickly removed my earplugs. I'm sorry, Miss Emily, there was a sudden situation upstairs that startled you. Please follow me out quickly. Mr. Billy is furious. With urgency in his tone, he led me out through door number 8, back into the light. The auction hall was in disarray, with guests huddled together in fear. Billy, gripping Lee's collar tightly, looked furious, ready to demolish the place if his wife wasn't returned intact. As he caught my gaze, his expression softened, pushing Lee aside and walking towards me with open arms, embracing me. Looking around, I quickly squeezed out a few crocodile tears in his arms. Honey, I was so scared. Back in the car, unable to contain my laughter, I joked about sweeping all the awards if I were in the entertainment industry. Seeing through me, Billy teased about going with Plan B. He shook his head, indicating that the wound had reopened, and he would show me when we got back. He then handed me a small USB drive hidden in the nail guard I gave him, wrapping my wound carefully with a band-aid before pulling me close. Feeling his concern, I teased him back, and without a word, he kissed me gently. Returning home, I rushed into Billy's carefully prepared studio without even changing clothes. Grabbing a brush, I meticulously drew the map of Midnight's lower level from memory. Admiring my masterpiece, Billy appeared behind me, embracing me with a tired but gentle voice. After exchanging some banter about the map and breakfast, Billy noted that he didn't need to verify my work since it was done by me. The next day, news of my exploits in Midnight spread, sparking mixed reactions. While I enjoyed flaunting my life on social media, Billy smoothly navigated the aftermath of exposing Midnight's underbelly, happily biting off a good chunk of the spoils. Unexpectedly, even Charles and Eric were involved, having taken a girl from Midnight's lower level 8 years ago. With the Midnight turmoil settling down, Billy had some free time, and I wasted no time offering him a contract. We've been invited as guests on a dating show. Are you free? Billy paused, amused at the idea of two old lovebirds on such a show. Ultimately, unable to resist my charm offensive, he agreed, and as he looked at me, he seemed to realize something, a deep smile tugging at his lips. Honestly, you saw right through me. Last time, I told you about the village, which is near the recording site of this dating show. The verdant mountains are steep and rugged, with bizarre rocks, bestowed with an unparalleled beauty by the wonders of nature. It's a pity that the only mountain road out of there has to make a big detour to pass through. Just passing by at the foot of the mountain made me itching to explore. So, after finishing the opening of the dating show, I put on my hiking suit, grabbed my sketchbook, and went straight up the mountain. I left Billy behind to cook dinner at the foot of the mountain. The live barrage was astonished. Wait, you two are not hanging out together, and it's still called a dating show. I came specifically to watch the moments of my cute wife. No wonder they say Wall Street is each for their own. After that, I couldn't see the live barrage, because there's no signal in the mountains. Only a follow PD with a wry smile followed me, trudging through the mountains and rivers. By the time I finished drawing the routes around the verdant mountains, the setting sun was almost out of sight. Just as I came down the mountain, a tall and slender figure bathed in the golden sunset was walking towards me. He was carrying a lunchbox. Seeing me, he paused slightly, a smile spreading across his lips in an instant. If you didn't come back in time, I was going to bring your food up. I can't draw in the dark, can I? I looped my arm through his as we returned to the recording site, only to find everyone looking at me strangely. The live barrage was also sarcastic. The big scumbag is back. How did it go from a cute wife to a big scumbag? What happened during the few hours I had no signal? Feeling the atmosphere getting weirder, I quickly went to watch the daytime replay while taking a shower. At the beginning, Billy still had that keep your distance attitude. Like a mafia boss, he sat in the tent looking at the proposal. No one dared to talk to him, and no one dared to talk to him, until the other guests finished the game and prepared dinner. Billy suddenly took a knife and stood behind the guests, with a cold and gloomy expression. Nearly scared everyone to pee in their pants. They could only stand on the side tremblingly, as they watched him skillfully cut meat and vegetables. After preparing meals for the other guests, the man took up the spatula and said, I might as well make yours now. And so, a sumptuous feast was served up by Billy. The guests instantly turned into his fans. Billy, you're really good at cooking. It's so delicious. Isn't the Wall Street Prince supposed to have 100 chefs managing all kinds of cuisines at home? Once Billy won them over with his food, everyone started chatting freely. Billy, tell us about your love story with Emily, come on. Billy smiled faintly. It seems like there is no love story between us. Back then, I confessed to her 10 times, and got rejected 10 times. How many times? Why don't I remember so many occasions? But the next moment, Billy actually took out 10 vintage-style love letters. Except for the first one, I had never seen the others. Alright, the guy in the show blatantly lied. So I stomped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel. Billy, when did you confess 10 times? Billy, leaning against the head of the bed, put down the book, looked me up and down for a few moments. The live broadcast was still on. I hurriedly went back to change my clothes amidst the shocked reactions from the audience. Coming out again, I just climbed onto Billy. Hurry up and explain. Raising an eyebrow, the man loosely encircled my waist with his arm. His other hand picked up the 10 letters on the bedside table. Apart from the first one, the other 9 I slid into your desk. The next day, they all ended up in the trash can. Surprised, I said, how come I don't remember throwing away any love letters? Can't you hand them to me in person like the first one? Billy looked a bit helpless as he said, you still remember why you rejected me for the first time, right? I recalled, it seems like I thought your handwriting was as ugly as a dog's paw print. It was just a randomly made-up reason. My heart and eyes were full of Eric at that time. Billy picked up another love letter. So this is the second one. I practiced my handwriting a bit. I pursed my lips and carefully opened it. The handwriting did look a bit better. The subsequent 3rd, 4th, and 5th letters had even nicer handwriting. I couldn't help but exclaim, by the 6th letter, I probably wouldn't mind the handwriting anymore. How could they be missing? I never had such a bad habit. Glancing at Billy, I unpacked the remaining love letters. Not only was the handwriting improved, but the writing style had also significantly improved. The last 2 letters even had 2 cute drawings. My eyes inexplicably welled up with tears. So you liked me so much that you had to confess 10 times before giving up. Billy suddenly laughed. Do you have any objections? He then hugged my waist tightly, pressing me into his arms. Taking a long breath, he said, anyway, I have you now. These letters didn't go to waste at all. Wait a minute, I was still not pleased. I really didn't throw them away. Before I could finish, Billy lowered his head and blocked my lips. I believe you. After rolling and frolicking for a long time, I leaned against his embrace, breathing gently. Suddenly remembering something, I raised my head again, and pecked his well-defined jawline. Billy, it's not too late for a love story now, is it? Why would it be late? The next day, as soon as I went out, I was surrounded by gossiping guests. Emily, you still haven't fallen for Billy. Going to a dating show alone. Is the power of first love really that strong? But that person is such a scumbag, don't you think? Emily, why don't you and Charles just stay permanently? We'll arrange a massive date battle for you. It's never too late for love after marriage. No, did Billy drug them with something during that meal? Sensing the impending rumors, I quickly took out the route map I drew yesterday. I only went to draw this yesterday. Everyone was full of question marks. What is this? It's the road plan to connect the village. Sitting in the tent, I then pulled out several plans from my charitable foundation. I'm currently planning a program to support the education of girls in mountain villages. We can afford to do it, but there are many villages with transportation difficulties, where children have to travel for hours to go to school. To read a book, one must first build a road. Since the local authorities couldn't come up with a plan, I decided to come over and draw a detailed map for them. And with your huge boost in popularity from the romance reality show, maybe it could put some pressure on them. That's why I joined your romance show. I casually pulled out a QR code. How about it? Interested in doing charity work with me? Before I could finish, a big hand snatched my phone from behind. Charity work shouldn't be forced on anyone. Billy shook his head in disbelief, and then called everyone over to grab breakfast. I wonder if this counts as forcing someone into something. After filming the show, the guests posted on social media and willingly sent me money. The romance show predictably blew up the whole incident. The local department quickly approached me, willing to let me personally supervise the road construction. How great is that? Sometimes you just need to be a little forceful. Everything was going smoothly for me, but I heard that Emily's family was in turmoil once again. Somehow, news about Rose being adopted by Charles and Joy from a shady deal at Unite reached William's ears. He was confused. If Charles had found his biological sister 8 years ago, why did he only bring her home now? So, William discreetly arranged for another paternity test on Rose. The result shocked him. Rose was not his biological daughter at all. After grilling Charles, his own son finally revealed the truth. It turned out, Charles felt threatened by me due to my favored status with William and close relationship with Eric. To get rid of me, he started looking for his long-lost biological sister, but only found news of her death. With the help of his good friend Joy, he bought a girl of unclear origin from Unite, carefully fabricated her background, eliminating any potential threats to his deception. They created his new sister, Rose, falsified the paternity test, and sent her to my family. But Charles never expected Lee, who had his ways. Later on, news spread about Emily's son and daughter being kicked out of the family for no apparent reason. William tried to reach out to me, even trying to cozy up to Billy, but we turned them away. As for Eric, after his involvement with Lee came to light, his father, who valued the family's prestigious reputation, became even more wary of him, especially with his scheming brother eyeing the throne. Without the support of the marriage alliance with my family, he couldn't even stand up to his brother. The next time I saw him was outside the bridal shop, where I was trying on wedding dresses. The once proud and aloof Eric stood there in a slightly familiar white suit, looking exhausted with red, tired eyes, staring at me through the glass door. Eventually, he took out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and pasted it on the glass door. Emily, this is the wedding dress and suit you designed for our wedding back then. You must remember, right? Emily, I'm wearing this suit now, and I'm willing to marry you. Will you come back to me? Before I could respond, Billy, dressed in a more exquisite wedding suit with small designs depicting the orbit of planets on the cuffs and tie, walked up to me. Eric outside suddenly broke down the barrier. Billy, who do you think you are? Do you think Emily will love you? She's just using you to spite me. Have you forgotten that she threw away 9 love letters from you back then? Oh boy. I looked at Billy. At that moment, his eyes sparkled, with a faint smile on his lips. Oh, it's you. He smiled mysteriously, clenched his fist, and walked out of the bridal shop, taking Eric with him. I sighed. Well, this suit will have to be remade. As for Eric, who knows where he ended up? By the time Billy returned home, it was late at night. He was a bit roughed up, but in an extremely excited state, as if centuries of grudges had been settled. "Can't you change first?" I painfully tore off his worn-out tuxedo, pushing him into the bathroom. But the next moment, I was pulled in two. Amid the sound of trickling water, the man, full of vigor, pressed me against the wall, mischievously indulging in naughty pleasures. "I love you. You finally, completely belong to me." I burst into laughter, desperately tilting my head back, kissing the corner of his eye.